Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I welcome you to another exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. As always, we want to give you life-changing and impactful business information, life information, and I do my best to bring impactful guests each and every time. And I've managed to land Mr. Dumisane Ntini, who is also a media personality and a businessman, and he will tell you more about himself in a moment. But welcome to the studio, Mr. Ntini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mogobe. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Just share your background and tell people about Big Budget, both the name and the business.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you once again for the opportunity. Dumisane Ntini from Lobatse is a multifaceted young entrepreneur with interests in governance, strategy, business development, media, and agriculture. So I happen to be a chartered wealth manager with a Master of Science in Governance and Fiduciary Risk, and my first degree is in finance. So I run a strategy and governance consultancy called Global Governance Group, which is really centered on governance, business development, and then I also host an online youth business show called Big Budget Business, which we'll talk about a bit later. And I also happen to serve our government in a public sector role in construction industry regulation. So that's the long and short of Dumisane Ntini.
Wow. You mentioned your first degree. Tell us about the other degrees.
Oh, okay, yes. Like I did say, the first one is a Bachelor of Finance, then the second one is a Master of Science in Governance and Fiduciary Risk.
Okay.
And then also the professional side, I'm a financial modeling and valuation analyst, as well as a chartered wealth manager.
Okay. So where is your business based?
Right, so presently we are based in Lobatse, in the suburb of Botoka. That's where we basically do a lot of our consultancy work, but we also operate here in Gaborone, considering the proximity, and as far as Francistown, because our services really can be done online, and also in terms of travel, we do that. That's the consultancy,
yes,
specifically, yes.
Okay, let's talk about Big Budget Business.
Right.
Why the name Big Budget?
Well, the name Big Budget was derived from my musical career. I happen to be a rapper, an astute one at that. I'm sure those who may have heard my songs will attest to that. So the name Big Budget was basically coming up from, it's more of a prophetic name, because that's what I see for myself. Having a big budget, having a lot of money. So, they say what you call yourself, you become. Life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yes, Big Budget, that's where the name came from. And so Big Budget Business was then derived from the name Big Budget. Now, Big Budget Business in itself is a show that empowers youth by inspiring them and motivating them to venture into business as an alternative means of income, as well as self-empowerment. Mr. Mogobe, this was really birthed from, the COVID-19 pandemic. That's basically when we started, and to date we have more than 50 episodes that we've aired. It was really out of the fact that a lot of people who thought they had jobs and their jobs were secure, that was actually a facade, because COVID revealed that you can't really rely on one source of income. And so Big Budget Business shares inspirational stories that are relatable with youth here in Botswana, and recently from SADC countries, because we've grown. And from these stories that our guests share, people are inspired to do and become more than they already are.
I know I've appeared in the show
Yes, of
almost about a year ago.
You were actually my fifth episode, sir.
Oh yeah,
And thank
wonderful.
you so much for
And that was a great experience. What has changed, if anything, since that appearance?
Absolutely. We've definitely grown with respect to our partnerships, because we work together with Black Network, which is the channel where the show is aired, and we also work with Moana Pictures. Now, in terms of our equipment, the quality of our production from that fifth episode to the 50th episode that we've had most recently, we've grown in leaps and bounds. Our studio setup is one that everybody is so pleased with whenever they're there. And another thing is the experience that we want people to have. You said it yourself that it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
And that's what we work to do on Big Budget Businesses, to create an experience for the interviewee and for the viewer.
How are you penetrating regionally and internationally as Big Budget?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the show itself has had commentary from as far as Japan. We've had call-ins from Japan, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, to name a few. We've had an international guest from Zimbabwe also who was here on a local trip. And so that shows just, you know, the power of online media and the reach that such initiatives can have.
Okay, all right. And I think the show complements the likes of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom,
Absolutely.
don't you think?
Absolutely.
That really, when we have shows of that caliber, you know, in the same ecosystem, in the same space, they can only strengthen one another.
Absolutely. You know, I'm very big on this aspect of collaboration, sir. And it is a pleasure, like I said, for me to be on your show and for you to have supported our vision from the very beginning. When people like yourself, and just to drop one name,
names, yeah.
yes, Mr. Umesh Luna, who's also been on our show, when people who are established in the industry bought into the vision from the very beginning. I think it's your blessing that sort of got us to 50 episodes. And really, as you were saying, you know, the collaboration, there's power and strength in numbers.
Yeah. Now, get into the subject of the day. Let's talk about the importance of strategy. But there's a thought that pops in my head about you as a DJ. Tell us a little bit. As a rapper.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your musical career.
Okay.
When was it and what became of it?
Okay, right. So really, my first release was in 2010, and the track was called Batowe. It was really just a vibe party song.
2010?
2010, yes. And in 2010, I actually released a mixtape. And to date, this is how many years later? What, we're in 2021, 11?
10 years.
The songs still play on local radio stations. So that should attest to the timelessness of my music. Not to boast or anything, but that's really my musical career, Big Budget, where it started as a rapper. You know, I had a lot of influence from the University of Botswana had sent me overseas to the States also
to do what?
For an international exchange program whilst I was doing my Bachelor of Finance degree. And at that school that I had gone to, the University of Richmond in Virginia, I actually created the school's sports anthem, and it was played, and I got to perform that in front of a large auditorium of 8,000 people. Now, this is a young Botswana child going to America and establishing something for a school where rap comes from, or where hip hop is basically from. So I've always had a passion for music. And
so have you pivoted away from music?
Yes.
And why?
To be honest with you, I have released some tracks, especially even this year. A track that we released this year called Bandling Brands, because Majitaba Bandling, our track Bandling Brands was actually #1 for a while on Yarona FM this year. So that should attest to, you know, I've still got it. But really, I've had to shy away from it because of focusing on other aspects, such as, you know, entrepreneurship and of course my public sector role. And basically, as you grow with Botswana, the ability to monetize your talent in that respect is a bit disheartening. However, we still do it for the love of it.
And COVID has really made it worse, hasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, for the people within the events and performance space, it's really dampened and disheartened them, because it was an unprecedented feat. So what can we say?
Let us switch to, you know, the importance of strategy development and using your business as a case study, so to speak.
Okay.
Can you unpack that a little for us?
All right. We really like to simplify things, Mogobe, and your strategy is really more of your guiding framework or your guiding plan for your organization, right? So, what exactly is it that guides your operations and actions in your business? Inherent in that strategy will be aspects such as your vision, your mission, your objectives. Now, vision, it's important. What's the desired future state of your organization? So when we work with organizations on strategy development, we ask, what's your desired future state? Whether it's short, medium, or long term, where do you see yourselves? I mean, the good book says, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Yes, yes.
And then it also says, write the vision down, make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. So ask yourself.
Habakkuk 2:2.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. So ask yourself, what is my my organization running with and running towards? That's what you should think when you think strategy. Your mission, basically more action orientated. What exactly are the actions that we'll take towards reaching this vision? Objectives, more specific. They'll then feed into your mission and your vision.
Yeah, but someone watching this for the first time may not understand.
Okay.
Let's take big budget. What would be the vision? What's the mission? And what are the objectives?
Okay. If we look at big budget business, right, and I won't talk about Global Governance Group, which is the consultancy.
Yes.
Big budget business in itself is a show that was really birthed to inspire, right, to motivate, right, and to get people into the business space.
Is that the vision or the mission?
No, that's basically the mission, because
Yeah.
that's what we work to do, right? Our
Yes.
vision is an economy that is driven and founded or based upon the strength of its young entrepreneurs, because you'll find that a lot of the most successful economies have entrepreneurship, whether it's within the informal sector or formal sector, but entrepreneurship is really the basis of the strength of these economies.
So entrepreneurship is at the heart of it.
Oh, absolutely,
You've
absolutely.
explained the vision and the mission. What are the objectives?
Okay, the objectives are basically to ensure that young people are well equipped with respect to knowledge of business related aspects. Mr. Mogobe, big budget business has a 2-minute training component at the end of every show called a 2-minute tip, where I, with using my background in consultancy and my educational background, I share tips on different aspects that can help young people to navigate whatever business challenges that they're facing. So we're not only about getting people in business, we want to ensure that they're well equipped and informed in that respect.
Okay. Let's move on to governance. I think this probably covers more the consultancy side.
Yes, sir.
Importance of governance regardless of business life cycle and size.
Yes,
and this could be relevant to the COVID situation. So can you help us digest that aspect?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, sir. With respect to governance, we're basically thinking oversight with respect to the running of the business. What are the frameworks and structures that are in place to ensure the proper functioning of our organizations, right? Now, remember that this is basically birthed from agency theory. You are an attorney, so I'm sure you understand agency theory, the principal agent problem. Are the shareholders being taken care of from a management perspective? And the board of directors, are they acting in the best interests of the organization stakeholders? Now, although this basically is within the purview of the board of directors and the executives of organizations, that's not to say that young entrepreneurs should not already incorporate this in their organizations. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me as Big Budget, or Dumisane for the formality of this interview.
Yes.
Yes, or Dumisane, thinking of 5 individuals who I feel can help serve as a board of governors in my organization. That can really help with respect to the oversight
Given their
aspects.
skills.
Given their skills and also sometimes their independence, because they can come in with views. If I have a lawyer friend, for instance, such as Mr. Mogobe, serving on my board, he can give me an independent view and say, Big Budget, from our perspective, we think from a regulatory or legislature perspective, try this, try that. So even young people in business should consider the importance of governance.
Okay. And you said it has nothing to do with size, and I'm just wondering whether you are applying some of the King guidelines. Are you familiar with it?
Absolutely. No. You know, if we talk about the King Code of Corporate Governance, it's really about corporate citizenship, right? Integrated reporting, regardless of, you know, how big you are, but ensure that there are people with different skills that can assist your business. When we say regardless of size, right, we're talking small to medium enterprise, we're talking large scale. It's important to have governance codes and ethics, because sometimes, look, if I were to do this on my own without sort of a governing board, I'm not accountable to anybody. And the King 4 Code does expound on this issue of accountability. It's important to be accountable to someone, because the business is not basically me, Big Budget.
No.
It's Big Budget Business, or it's a global governance group. It's an entity on its own. Yes, sir.
All right. What are board inductions and evaluations? What are those about?
Okay, it's funny that you mentioned that. There is a local publication, I'm not sure if I can state the name, it's called the Business Weekly and Review. I'll just state that now. I have a section in that magazine where I contribute articles on corporate governance, and it's called the Corporate Governance Corner. So funny enough, the last article that we published was on this issue of board inductions. Now, board inductions shouldn't be seen by executives and directors as simply a meet and greet, coming together to appoint you so you sign and serve on the board. No, that's not what it is. Board inductions are important because this is the foundational point, or the fundamental point, where you as a new appointee, or the board in general, understand what's our culture, where are we going, what's the past performance and trajectory, and also what value will I be contributing as a new board appointee to the vision of the organization. So induction is important in that respect. I think you asked about evaluation.
Evaluations as well.
Yes, evaluation. It's good to always go back to the drawing board. Evaluations are checks on whether or not, Mr. Mogobe, we are meeting our set targets. You see, now evaluations are important because we then get to assess. When we undertake,
are they done by an independent consultant, or they're done internally?
You can do them internally, but it's always good to get an outsider to tell you, because you see, when it's done internally, there's a lot of aspects that may be hidden, because if we are friends and we are on the same board, we may have sort of agreed to do something or connived to do something, so I can't call you out. So independence is important for your evaluations sometimes, like your independent audits, just as your independent audits can be important. So now the independence aspect rather is important, because we will then bring a judgment of the individuals and how each of them are contributing, and then we look also at the collective. And thereafter, we look at remedial actions. Is there anything that's going wrong? Where can we work together to re-strategize and get back on point or on course?
And of course, it's not every organization that embraces this. What would you say to those who are reluctant to embrace some of these codes?
Absolutely.
King Code, for instance.
The question, Mr. Mogobe, would be, why the reluctance? Why the reluctance? You know, at times they'd be reluctant because
maybe people don't want a light shined over what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Or they don't want.
Absolutely.
They don't want transparency.
Transparency and disclosure are very important. Remember that I did mention our businesses, we should treat them as entities outside of themselves. I mean, that's why you'll go and incorporate and register your company, and then it'll be an entity on its own outside of Big Budget or outside of Dumisane. You see, so independence is important in that respect.
And what's been your experience in terms of, in Botswana, in terms of selling this message? How successful are you as consultants in getting the message through?
Right. At the risk of getting into too much detail, I'm sure a lot of us have seen in the media, we've witnessed the accounts of what's been going on in different organizations. I won't say the nature of these organizations, but we've seen that there have been corporate governance scandals, not just locally, but even in the SADC region and globally. You see, so now the very fact that these things are now becoming or getting into the public eye shows these scandals, misuse, misappropriation of funds and the like. This shows the importance of us generally understanding, not just as the organizations, but as the public. Let's understand corporate governance.
And I hear you, but are we winning? I mean, is the message getting through?
You see, that one, is a rather challenging question to answer, and I will admit, because what we're focused on doing right now is working towards raising that awareness. I did speak about the article section that I have, which is also trying to raise awareness. We talk about such issues on our shows, and we try as much as possible to ensure that people inculcate, this into their, corporate cultures. And one belief that I have, sir, is that as younger people get into these positions of executive level, not that there's anything wrong with learning from our elders. We need you because we need to shadow you. If you can embrace shadowing us, then that would definitely help. But as more young people who have had issues like corporate governance in the content of their courses that they study, they'll definitely uphold some of these when they're now in the corporate sector.
Can we also talk a little bit about government? I mean, I heard HE talking about the Great Reset.
Yes.
To what extent do you think the government requires corporate governance assistance? And speak a little bit about this reset, which has been spoken of repeatedly in the highest places.
Absolutely. Firstly, we need to commend the president for recognizing the need for a reset. Obviously, for him to decide that there's a reset, there are things that he's identified as he has come into leadership, right? So I can't generalize and speak about government as a whole, but we do know that from here and there are organizations that strictly require, that really need to incorporate this corporate governance aspect. And it's good that now it's coming from the top. The issue of the reset is coming from the top, and as it comes from the top, it will definitely trickle down into the different parastatals and state-owned entities, because just as much as the private sector needs it, government needs it. And also non-governmental organizations, NGOs, no one is exempt. We all need to incorporate a better corporate governance culture.
Yeah, but I've had one guest, in fact several guests, lamenting the fact that we're just far too bureaucratic. One other guest even said they don't see the change or the reset taking place during our lifetime.
Okay.
How optimistic or pessimistic are you about this?
Well, I would say personally I'm very optimistic about it, and that is why I chose to do my studies in issues such as governance and fiduciary risk. You see, as stewards of not just the taxpayers' money, even if I'm in a bank, I'm a steward. We are all just stewards. In life, we are shepherds. You see what I'm saying? Basically, there are things that we have been given responsibility for. And I'm optimistic. And that's why Global Governance Group was actually formed. You see, it was birthed out of this realization that, we can change. But for us to change from a corporate governance perspective, someone has to be the change. Hence, firms like us and others within the sector.
So be the change. You've embraced the words of Mahatma Gandhi.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
sir.
Be the change.
Absolutely.
Now, the evaluation of performance of business, you say that is very important.
Okay.
Big budget and your consultancy business. How do you go about evaluating your own internal performance? Exactly what are the steps that you take? And just sort of make it simple for us to understand how one should go about it.
There are multiple ways, Mr. Mogobe, of doing this, but let me give you two slight examples that we can use to evaluate, which we've used for both our businesses and which other young people in business can use and other large organizations. You undertake things such as SWOT analyses. Like your SWOT analysis will show your strengths, your weakness, and opportunities and threats. Whenever you're evaluating, you check, where do we stand with respect to this? Have we turned our opportunities into threats? Now, we've had opportunities, for instance, on the show to feature international guests, and we used those. You see what I'm saying? So now we use that as a strength. We've shifted that opportunity into a strength. Now we've got international clout as a show. You see what I'm saying? And besides things like SWOT analysis, balanced scorecard.
What is that?
Balanced scorecard is basically a framework or mechanism that you can use to check your key performance indicators in, a range, like 4 different states. Firstly, your financial aspects. You look at those aspects. Organizational growth in terms of your team. Are your people improving? You see, and then your stakeholder and customer focus. You look at things like, are my clients happy with what I'm doing? So you can use such things as the balanced scorecard with its 4 different perspectives to see whether or not you are reaching your targets. Evaluation, constant evaluation is important.
And I asked you earlier whether it has to be internal or external. Do you firmly believe that it always has to be somebody from outside?
No, not necessarily, sir. And not necessarily, because it's the same as a household. If I'm a father and I happen not to be acting very well in my household, I can either call myself to order at the advice of my wife and children. Alternatively, bomalome ba tla go nkgakolla.
Yes.
I get gore nya ga wa dira sentle leha. So really, I think we can add that or contextualize that from a business perspective. You see, if management can certainly call themselves to order internally and the organization can work towards it, perfectly so. But if you need outside help, never shy away from getting it.
Yeah. Motivating the workforce.
Yes, sir.
That for me, as a person who's been in business, has always been a huge challenge. Sometimes you bring a rah-rah motivational speaker and people respond to that person, and then a week or two later, it's like nothing has happened. So it's really a challenge. How would you advise, as an expert, companies approach this importance of workforce motivation?
Okay. I think I'll speak to this from the employer and employee perspective. As the employer, there are several aspects that are actually rooted in motivational theory that we need to consider, right? Now, are my human resource departments, for instance, when I'm remunerating my employees, are we looking at aspects maybe like Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Am I ensuring that from the physiological needs of my individuals, the safety needs, are they in a safe environment, all the way to self-actualization? Am I giving them an opportunity to prove themselves and be and show that they indeed can create value? From an employer perspective, perhaps that can help. Because yes, you can have a workshop where, funny enough, we did one recently, where you go and you motivate staff, right? Yes, and thereafter it's back to normal, you know, because even with church services, sometimes you might go and then immediately as you walk out of the church, you feel it's back to normal. You see, now that's where we now look at the internal or the employee or me personally. There are things that I can do to ensure that as an employee, I'm doing my best to keep myself motivated. You see, we can't shy away from the troubles of this world and this life, such as COVID. But I think a shift in perspective and being full of gratitude for the fact that we were not retrenched, some of us, for the fact that our businesses are still going, and then a focus on, okay, we may have made, you know, less of a profit than we usually do, but let's ensure that we are grateful for that. Things like gratitude and self-development. If I feel I'm not growing, I shouldn't really count on my employer to say, no, my employer, let me try and use the little that I have to better myself.
Information and education is now freely and readily available.
And I think that's one of the pluses of COVID. You see, COVID has made a lot of online learning possible and online development possible at very low cost. You see, and you never know which next certificate could be your stepping stone to that greatness that you want or to that better motivation. So it's really a broad and far-reaching realm, sir.
So what does your company do? For instance, as Mogobe Inc., we say, look, our staff are a bit, demotivated, or they have low morale.
Yes.
What would you actually do in getting into an organization and trying to have that paradigm shift or that shift in motivation?
Yes, I think a lot of our emphasis is on team dynamics, sir, because we work in groups. We are social beings, and we must understand that a lot of our success as organizations, yes, may be induced by one individual, fine, but it's more the collective that causes the overall growth of the organization, right? So we look at aspects, let me give you an example. We'll come in and ask you, okay, let's all look at the Joe Harry window. We look at the Joe Harry window, which will show aspects about yourself that you feel you know and are hidden to others, or things that others will reveal.
Some of my guests may not know what you're talking about, Joe Harry window.
Absolutely.
Some of my listeners, you have to probably explain that.
Okay, so the Joe Harry window is basically a technique of assessing self right? Now, assessing self and then also assessing groups. What you do, you will have different windows on this Johari window where there'll be aspects that are either hidden to yourself, that will then be revealed to yourself, aspects that you know that you may have been afraid to reveal to others. Vulnerability, it's important to be vulnerable in groups so that everyone can start to open up. And then there's things that you might not even have known about yourself, capabilities that you perhaps as my manager will reveal to me and say, "Wizor Maloba, when you made that presentation in front of the board, I was so proud of you. I didn't know you were such a great public speaker." And here I am thinking to myself as the internal auditor that I can't speak. You see, so it's simply a mechanism or tool for assessing our characters, our natures, things that we can reveal and learn about ourselves.
And let's go to the importance of financial literacy. That one going beyond, perhaps, rich dad, poor dad.
Yes.
You could perhaps enlighten us about that one in terms of what the organization does.
Okay, no, basically, in terms of financial literacy, it's more about ensuring that people have at the least, Mr. Mogobe, a basic understanding of the tie between having basic financial and accounting knowledge and the success of your business. Because we need to understand that sometimes my dear business has my dear the business funds are not necessarily my funds. Regardless of that, how do I set my income versus my expenditures? Right? How do I set my assets versus my liabilities? The assets, the things that my business owns. The liabilities, the things that my business owes. Dikoloto. For instance, if I go and get a loan and then necessarily purchase myself a Range Rover, and I'm speaking that into my life, you see, but and then call it, an asset. Sometimes it might not necessarily be an asset because I still have to go and pay the financial institution. I haven't fed the business with assets such as plant and machinery that might generate more income. So a basic understanding or a rudimentary understanding of, income versus expenditure, budgeting, how to budget even as an individual, things like your balance sheets, accounting or finance for non-finance managers. There are courses like that that people can undertake so that you have an understanding about money.
Is it fair to say that there's no hope of anyone succeeding in business if they're not financially literate?
Not necessarily.
In today's world?
Not necessarily, sir. I think from a personal perspective, I would say that there is a certain stroke of luck and grace involved in it. So very many times you will find successful entrepreneurs who, maybe because of their drive and commitment to what they were doing and focusing on whatever they were manufacturing and everything, they managed to get the right teams to help them and support them in that respect. So not necessarily, but please let us not discount the importance of having that knowledge, because you never know when you'll need it.
Okay, what's the definition of personal financial wellness?
Personal financial wellness, we deal a lot with this in churches. Churches tend to have wellness days, just as organizations have wellness days. And then they'll say, financial wellness, or your financial wellness, simply put, sir, is how healthy am I from a financial standpoint? Am I bleeding funds? Do I have something, a cushion, that in the event that an emergency could happen, I don't have to start going to Mr. Mogobe and saying, Mr. Mogobe, do I have that on the side? Am I healthy enough to not need to go and borrow and increase my debt, right? Am I financially healthy enough such that when I retire, I can say I'm retiring comfortably, or venture into an agricultural venture or whatever I'd like to do? So simply put, personal financial wellness is how healthy are you from a financial standpoint?
And how do you help companies and individuals attain that status?
Well, it goes back to the financial literacy aspect that we were speaking to. We are not necessarily financial advisors, and we can direct you to those, right? But we do train people on an understanding, right, of, okay, this is what your money means. This is your income. This is your expenditure. We are not licensed to tell you that take your money and put it in unit trusts, or take your money to the stock exchange and the like. But no, we will tell you, my dad's Emma, my dad's.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Have you suffered setbacks or in the financial sphere or in your career sphere that you may wish to share with the viewer, and what lessons do you learn from those?
Yes, it really, my fear and a lack of belief in myself. In as much as my environment from a young age had been giving me the proper feedback that indeed you are capable of doing what you want to and you can be, something deep down within was telling me no, you can't. After all, you know, maybe you have bad eating habits, or maybe you have this or that. And some of these
Is it like a
things,
voice
absolutely,
in your head?
Absolutely, sir. There's always going to be that voice that discourages you. And it's in those moments of discouragement where, you know, for me, it's really been having to push myself, sir, and say, you know what, I'm fairly young, I can take the risk. What do I have to lose?
Yeah,
Let me go
what
for it.
systems do you use to get over that fear, that initial anxiety?
Yes, stepping onto the stage. I like to speak, and I'll use a big budget business as an example, sir. I will not say that with every episode, having done 50, right? I will not say that there are times where I go in and say, I was born for this. There's always that little voice on the inside that says, what are you
What
trying
is all
to
this?
do?
Yeah, yeah.
After all, you're a young boy, or you're man.
Yes.
And funny enough, this is internal discourse, internal conversation, but I've had to quiet that down by getting into action, sir. Go and do what you're supposed to do. Lose this perfectionism illusion.
Wow, I like that. Let's talk about the importance of collaboration, especially for young entrepreneurs, from the point of view of your own experience and what you would urge them to do.
Yes. You know, collaboration is key, especially for an economy like ours, which is rather small, sir. You'll find that if we lost this competition culture, we could go very, very far in leveraging off each other's strengths. Our example, for instance, is Big Budget Business, the show. Right? I come with the content, I come with, of course, the talent and the talent of different individuals, right? And then there's Moana Pictures, which will bring in their skills of coming up with quality content. You know, Black Network, which has the equipment to showcase a beautiful and informative show. We came together and collaborated. You see what I'm saying? And as we continue to collaborate as young people in business, we create our own ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? For instance, I have like a power group of 4 friends, you know, one who's an engineer, I have a quantity surveyor.
It's like a mastermind group.
A mastermind group. And Napoleon Hill did allude to this in Think and Grow,
Yeah,
Grow Rich.
it's one of the important pillars.
You know what I'm saying? So I have a lawyer friend and an accountant friend. So I know that, you know what, if my numbers are going wrong, I'll go and speak to Mike. Or if this is going, and we leverage off each other's skills and support each other's businesses such that we can grow. So collaboration is key. And for instance, you having shown that you bought into our vision by coming onto our show, whereas many people would think, hey, we sort of show. No, that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. It's really about coming together for a better economy.
So, and in terms of looking forward,
Yes, sir.
are you envisaging collaboration beyond the 4, corners of the country?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the response that we've been getting from our viewers outside, I did mention call-ins from as far as Japan, call-ins from Côte d'Ivoire, where I had to find myself speaking French on an episode because I do speak French.
Oh, you do? Lucky you.
Thank you very much. But you know, that already is a signal that we can and will go far with commitment and hard work.
Yeah, I've been on many Zoom calls with people in Nigeria and in Ghana as a result of this show. So
wonderful.
Great things are happening.
That inspires me, so I should keep doing what I'm doing.
Yes, yeah, you should. How do you keep abreast with big budget business and local developments for young entrepreneurs? How do we go about doing that?
Or how do people, as in follow us or reach us?
Yes, how do we maintain how do we keep up with the pace?
Yes, keep up with the pace by watching Big Budget Business. On Facebook, the show airs on a channel called Black Network, BLAC space network. That's where you'll find Big Budget Business. And then for me to follow me on YouTube and on Facebook, I'm simply Big Budget. Big Budget is one word, BIG, and then a capital B for you, and then UDGET, Big Budget. Right, that's YouTube and Facebook. Instagram, I am BIGG Budget. BIGG Budget. And lastly, LinkedIn, Dumisane Ntini.
Okay, let's hope they write that down. I know that you have another side which fuels you, which is the spiritual side. And you, like me, are a Christian. Do you want to speak a little bit about that and tell us how it impacts what you do?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, I believe that, you know, what I have is not mine and mine alone. We are only stewards. I really believe that we are only stewards. What has been placed in our hands is meant to assist others. What drives me in life, sir, is the fact that I am blessed to be a blessing. So really, for me not to pass on whatever knowledge the Lord has blessed me with, and to pass on whatever skills, or to assist corporate clients to get to a better state, that for me is what drives me. Seeing people happier, organizations better, and that's really birthed from, you know, my belief in creating a better world with what you have.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now we've come to the crystal ball moment, which I can't let you leave without talking about it. In terms of your projections, 10, 15, 20 years, what do you see for Big Budget, both as the consultant and as I call you a media entrepreneur?
Oh yes, thank you, sir. Yes, with really, I think it's summed up in the name of the consultancy, Global Governance Group, sir. Our aim is to reach the far ends of the world. You know, apostles like Paul were told, you will reach the far ends of the world. That's really what we want to do, sir, is to reach the outermost places, to see someone in Bangladesh one day, or someone in right here on our continent, Eritrea, saying, wow, I saw a Motswana entrepreneur on Big Budget Business, and I feel I can contextualize this locally. Whether it's 10 to 50 years, we'll keep pushing towards that with the show. And from the consultancy perspective, we want to lead. We want to lead and ensure that we compete, because who's to say that an indigenous Botswana company cannot compete with the McKinseys of the world, cannot compete with your Booz Allen Hamiltons and the like. So that's where we see ourselves, sir.
And I've seen the word black appear somewhere, and sometimes people are confused with our restaurant Black.
Oh yes, yes.
Tell us, what does that?
I think that's good marketing for you, because everyone thinks restaurant. Yes, no, really, the Black Network in itself came up with them as the channel. There was something that they were trying to communicate, and which I would like to think, I'll have to go back and ask them why black, but it's really trying to emphasize, you know, the beauty and the blackness of, or Africanness of the things that we do.
Oh, wonderful. Here's an opportunity to hit me with a question, sir.
Funny enough, sir, you told me about how I'm spiritually driven. My question to you was going to be, sir, how has your spirituality impacted your business journey? That's really all I wanted to know from you, sir.
Directly, because one of the commands, if you go deeper in the Bible, it's even part of the, the 10 Commandments, where the Lord says, 6 days shall ye work. And then, of course, it says the 7th day you take a break.
Of course.
So if you look at it even mathematically, it looks like the dominant thing is to work, that we're expected to work. And even in the book of Genesis, there's talk of working the land.
Till the soil.
Tilling the soil.
Absolutely.
So I've embraced that idea, and I think that your work and your spirituality are inseparable.
Wow.
And I, like you, also believe that you are you are blessed for the specific purpose of becoming a blessing. Just like Abraham was. He wasn't blessed in isolation.
Absolutely.
So whatever blessing you have, whatever gifts you have to be prepared to share them. And look at it this way, all the successful businesses are those that provide a service that people appreciate. So I'm determined to serve, and it's a spiritual command. In my judgment, it's part of the 10 commandments. So there's no running away from it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. You've answered me fully.
Okay. Look at that, camera and leave words of inspiration. You've talked about your contacts, but maybe I think you can summarize them as we come to the end of our time together.
All right. Thank you once again for the opportunity. Just words of inspiration. Work is important. Let's ensure that in whatever we do, let's try and do it wholeheartedly. Half-hearted efforts can take us nowhere. Let's work on our work ethic and see that we apply ourselves to being the best that we can be, because we do not realize the potential that is within us. You know, they've said that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but rather that we are powerful beyond measure. So let's see how far our work can take us. And please do subscribe to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom on YouTube. It's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And did you give your contact? Earlier you mentioned where people can
The socials,
reach you, but
yes.
suppose you can give them your WhatsApp number.
Okay.
Your business WhatsApp.
Yes, absolutely. My business WhatsApp is +267, and I state once again, business WhatsApp. Just joking. +267 7541 0004. 7541 0004. You can contact us there.
Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a wonderful. All right.